Hello, hello, hello. How are you all doing today? Giving it a second to let folks join in. For those of you who are watching this replay, this is Civics 101. Welcome to Civics 101. Civics 101 is an opportunity to discuss the circumstances of our government. It is an opportunity for us to learn about how we can work better together. It is an opportunity for us to understand our civic and spiritual responsibility to one another, to cast our votes and to stand up for what we believe in. So I am super excited to have another conversation today with my dear friend and colleague and sister in the movement. Her name is Tonya Love, and I believe this request here is from Tonya, so hopefully I'm bringing her in. Yay! Is this you? Are you here? Are we connecting? Yeah! It worked!
Yeah, it worked this time.
How are you doing today, beautiful?
Pretty good. It's a lovely day, so I'm still working. I'm working from home, but I'm looking out my window and it's lovely.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm glad that you are continuing to do your thing. My camera keeps doing the weirdness, but it's all good today. Yeah. Rocking my dope era, representing the town, as per usual. Awesome. So what are we talking about today, sister? We're talking about Proposition 19 and 20?
Yeah. So, housing.
Yes.
Housing is obviously the biggest issue that's facing Californians for years now. Mm-hmm. And there have just been various efforts and initiatives to try to alleviate the housing crisis. One from a building standpoint, where the government's trying to do more to create and make sure to help developers build more housing. But there's also efforts to protect those who already have housing, whether it's tenants or, homeowners. Mm-hmm. And so today, two propositions that are going to be on the ballot, are looking to help those who have lost their homes or those who are tenants. So we'll talk about number 19 first.
Awesome. Well, wait, before we do all of that, because I just assume that everybody knows you like I know you. So I'm like, Tanya's the knower of all of the stuff, guys. Obviously, you know this. So before we jump right on in, and especially since you're logged in from the Haven Instagram account. First, I want to tell you all about Haven. Haven was founded by our sister friend, Ryan Nicole, and it is all about housing justice. It's a clearinghouse space for information around housing justice. And so we're grateful for the initiative of Haven. And then we're very grateful for the brilliance that is Tonya Love. And really, to me, Tonya, yes, Tonya is the definition of genius.
I am not.
Yes, you are. To me, Tonya is the knower of all of this stuff, local government, and the lover of Brussels sprouts. And so if you could just tell me a little bit, or tell everyone a little bit about your background and what you do and why you do what you do and what you're motivated to do in just a couple of quick moments.
Yeah, so I am a resident of Oakland. I've been here for about 20 years, and I have been just a follower of Oakland politics since 2009. I decided to take it upon myself to learn about what's happening at the local level, what the city council is doing to support residents. And I watch city council meetings and I live tweet them. And
which is a blessing to humanity, by the way.
Yeah, or blog about them or talk about it on Facebook. And I try to get people to, be involved and say, hey, speak up, tell them how you feel, let them know how you think about certain things. Mm-hmm. I also actually worked for a nonprofit to help engage low-income communities of color around public health, environmental change. I did that for about 8 years. And then I switched from doing that to actually working for the state for an elected official, the state assembly member that represents Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro. And what I did there was basically educate people about what he was doing at the state legislature, but also just telling people how they can learn more about what the state is doing to help run government. And so I recently left that position, and now I'm kind of just floating around, but I'm also helping a particular candidate run for office in Oakland. But my goal is to really try to do more and spend more time on advocacy and education rather than helping others do
Why
it.
is that important to you?
Because when you are working with someone who's an elected officials have to represent everyone in the district. But there are things that are super important to me that I already know where I stand on, and I just want to be on the side of where I believe and not necessarily kind of take on that neutral stance. So I feel strongly around housing justice, housing rights. I feel strongly around police use of force, and I'm against it, and I need that to end.
Look at that. That's a concept.
Really need that to end. And then, equal rights, social justice, racism. I stand strongly against that. So I am actually also an elected member of the California Democratic Party, but also the Alameda County Democratic Party. So I'm going to be fighting for these ideals. And I recognize even the Democratic Party needs help, needs work, needs pushing. And so I plan on doing that from the inside too.
Absolutely. And the more of us that take it upon ourselves to just know that our civic responsibility, it's like having a big family. You know what I mean? Like you are responsible for your siblings. You are your brother and your sister's keeper. And that's why I'm often, everybody who knows me, I'm like, I'm a spiritual woman. I think most everything that we're doing is, is a spiritual choice. And this is standing up and being counted for what you believe in, and standing with people and saying, I believe in your right to live. So as I choose my right to live, I'm standing for your right to live. I believe that all of us deserve food, clothing, shelter, safety, clean air, clean water, access to culturally relevant education, Wi-Fi, and a passport. I believe all those things.
And a passport. That's right.
Yes. My job is to be engaged enough so that I know the nuances of how we stand for those things, and when it's time to fight, that we fight for those things. So I always just give so much thanks for you, Tonya, because you're willing to get into the weeds with it. You're so willing to wait, what is that? Clear away, peel back the layers of the onion. So I am excited about talking to you today about Prop 19. We're going to look that one up first and talk about that one first.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
So Proposition 19 actually is a way to help those who are current homeowners. It's an effort to help those who are current homeowners, who are seniors, who people with disabilities, living with disabilities, and those who may have been victims of natural disasters. So we know California has been experiencing a gang of natural disasters, mainly fires, for the past several years, but really it's just come to a head these past 2 or 3 years. And there have been thousands of people who have lost their homes. And it's been very difficult for them to recoup, to find a new place to live, or to find just a nice roof over their head, right? Yeah. So there's this effort to see, okay, so how can we help these people? But then again, like I said, there has been a housing crisis for a number of years. And one of the things that some realtors are thinking about doing or wanting to do is provide seniors and those with disabilities the ability to be able to move out of their current home and be able to move to a new place, but still keep their property tax protections, their low property tax rate when they move to a new home that may be actually more expensive than the one that they are currently in. Yeah.
So explain to me why that's useful or helpful or good or not so good.
Well, so it may not be as good because it's good for the seniors, because the thing is that they're saying there may be seniors that are puttering around in houses that are like 3 or 4 or 5 bedrooms, and they don't need that space anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're saying, what if these seniors just want to move to a smaller spot?
Mm.
But since they've been living in their home for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've been paying low property tax rates.
Right.
But if they decide to move tomorrow,
Right.
the houses are worth so much more than they
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
And so even if they move to a smaller house, it still may be more expensive than the house that they're currently living in.
Right.
And so what they want to do is be able to give these seniors the ability to be able to stay in a place that they can afford at the tax rate that they're used to.
Okay.
That's, that's good. And then you're opening up this big, huge house for somebody else, a new family to move in.
Okay.
So,
So
that's
you're
idea.
65 plus.
Yeah.
All your kids or whatever are gone, and you want to live someplace that's comfortable, but you don't want, and you're living on a fixed income. And
Right.
so you need to be able to live, still pay taxes, but just not get priced out. And then it leaves available space for this housing crisis that's happening for a potential younger family to maybe move in and continue to pay that mortgage.
Or if you were a recent victim of a fire, you
Right.
lost your home, you paid a certain tax rate, you need to move now out of Napa or Solano County or wherever, maybe to Oakland, and it's way more expensive in Oakland. And so they're offering you this opportunity to pay the tax rate that you were paying prior to the fire and move to a new place and keep that same tax rate.
That sounds like loving and kind, and that sounds
good,
right. But then then we have Liz, and Liz is like, but this leaves folks who are rich to benefit the most. So can you and since I was telling Liz yesterday about when we did Civics 101 and 18, and you were explaining to me what the county assessor did, and I had a meltdown.
Yeah.
This seems like, and we were talking about this yesterday, I'm like, it seems like it might be in the same kind of situation where if we're not paying taxes on our homes, what happens to our school system? Like, work me through this.
So that kind of just, again, what it seems like a nice thing to do, but it reduces the ability for the state and the local jurisdictions to recoup revenue. There is also, we don't even know how many wealthy people that will actually benefit from this versus those who are lower income versus those who lived in a fire. I tend to think that those who live in Napa may be actually wealthier than the general population. Maybe that's my assumption. I don't know if that's fact, so don't fact check me. But we don't know how many people who are low income that will really benefit versus those who are wealthier.
Yeah.
But the other thing about 19, though, what it does is in order to because they tried to pass this before in 2018 and it didn't go right. But now they're saying, okay, so if you allow us to do this, we will get rid of a tax break for people who parents have died, they owned a home, and they wanted to give it to their kids. So those who inherit a house from mom or dad that lived in California, they currently have a tax break, whereas they get to keep that same tax rate from mom and dad that they used to have. But those children didn't have to live in the house, right?
See, this is how, when we talk about intergenerational wealth, and we talk about the major difference between Black poverty and white poverty, like this is a huge thing. People are like, I didn't get to go to college, well, but white poverty often comes with land ownership because for time and more forever, they've been able to own homes. So Black people around the country in many places couldn't even get a mortgage until the mid 60s, right? So now we're talking about people who have been able, this is how you pass on generational wealth. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not engaged civically, you don't understand how this impacts us, like everybody. And okay, keep going.
So in general, usually, like you're saying, generational wealth, usually white people benefited from this. So we have a whole bunch of people who are probably have homes in their families and they want to be able to pass this down to their children. If we vote yes on 19, those kinds of inheritances won't have a tax break. They won't be able to keep that tax break. And so what it will do is that will actually generate a whole bunch of money for California. And then that means that they can use that money to go to firefighters, which is why when you're seeing Prop 19 commercials, you're seeing a bunch of firefighters talk about how this will be great for them.
So why is the money going to firefighters? Is that just a part of the proposition?
That's part of the proposition. They're saying a bunch of the money will go to firefighters and other initiatives.
Well, that's awesome. Maybe they could actually hire firefighters that were previously incarcerated at a livable wage. What a concept.
Yeah. So there's that. So 19 does is, one, it allows seniors and those with disabilities the ability to be able to purchase a home at the same tax rate as they had before.
Okay.
But what it will do is it will take away the ability for people to give their home inherited properties to adults. And those, well, they can still do it, but they'll have a high tax rate now.
So they'll have a tax rate that's commensurate with the current value of the market rate value of the house. Okay. And
so
does that well, one more clarifying question. Does that mean that, like, so part of what was happening before that was, again, creating this unstable generational wealth gap thing amongst people is, so you inherit a house, you maintain that tax rate, and but you don't have to live in it. And you don't even have to have anybody in your family that's living in it. So will that change? Like, if you keep the house and you live in it, will you get to keep the tax rate?
You get to keep the tax rate. And so one of the things that as a concern is, like, there's a lot of African-American homeowners who are like, well, then what does this mean for my ability to have generational wealth?
Mm-hmm.
How are we able to maintain, property in our homes? And so it will impact that. But if you are one of those homeowners, let's say a lot of people that I know, maybe grandma has a house. You don't have a house. You live in an apartment, but grandma does. And unfortunately, she passes on and she leaves the house to you.
Mm-hmm.
You can move into that house and still keep that tax rate. What you can't do is have the house chilling, rent it out to other people, or do whatever you want with it, not move in and just keep that same tax benefit. Mm-hmm. You would have to move in if you want to keep that tax benefit if Proposition 19 passes.
Seems like something to definitely mull over and do more research on, because it's just so much. I mean, like, on one hand, it seems rational. On the other hand, it feels like there have been generations of people who live in the Napas, who live where there have been fires, where, like, certainly Santa Rosa and areas like that are not necessarily wealthy, but they are poor white people who are living in houses that have been passed on to them. That I can attest to. That part I can see and know, right? And so there has been a discrepancy for so long that these are those moments where the nuances are really worth weighing. You know, like, it's definitely more research to be done.
And I'm like a pro tenant person.
Yeah.
I'm like, this made me have pause. I still don't really understand how I'm going to vote at the end of the day. But it's very nuanced. But I can tell you this, I'll tell you who's for it and who's against it. So we have the Democratic Party is voting yes on it. We have the California Nurses Association's voting yes on it. You have the firefighters and the realtors who are all voting for it.
Of course, the realtors are.
Yeah. So they are for this.
Mm-hmm.
And those who are against it, dude, I didn't even write that down. But I think
Liz says that the same folks who are behind Proposition 13 are behind this.
Oh yeah, the tax people are.
Yeah,
they're for this.
They're for this. Which definitely means that it requires some nuanced research, you know.
Right.
There's definitely truth to the idea that you got to know who's behind what so that you know what rocks to look up under. So we had a couple of questions about this. I usually like to take questions about everything at the end, but let's look through this because much like you guys, I'm like, I don't know. So Ryan says, does, folks are out here doing the thing. Yes, Dope Era. Does Oakland, for example, have housing inventory? I mean, we got housing inventory, not enough to take care of everybody, but can't nobody afford it. Part of the part of the reason we doing this.
I don't know if we have. Well, so they're saying that there's this factoid that's around that there's basically at least 4 units of empty housing per person, and that empty housing is corporate owned housing. So I don't know if the city of Oakland has housing just ready to go chilling. I don't think there's really any extra housing available unless it's large corporate owners who are ready to flip. And there's some who are ready to flip too. Maybe smaller owners, but basically it's you know, there's not a lot of housing stock available. So yeah.
And it's frustrating because it's like there's not a lot of housing stock available. Here we are mulling over Crumbs, right? Like we're sitting here having this conversation about Crumbs, and we're having a conversation about Crumbs, and of course race again plays into the conversation if you even peel back just part of the onion, right? And that we're not, that we know that there's so much housing in Oakland. There is space. There are places that have been built. We drive by them all the time. And if you're from Oakland, home doesn't look recognizable in so many places. And to know that there's so many vacancies in those places.
That are market rate though.
That are market rate that, you know, I mean, and I guess I keep on coming back to this idea that like, we mull over the details of oppression without spending the energy would be better spent going, how can we figure out how to build housing for everybody? Sorry, that's another, sorry.
Yeah, so let's move on to
Prop 21, sorry, yes.
Yeah, so Prop 21 is another kind of way to get at Costa Hawkins. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Costa Hawkins was passed in 1995. And what it does is it limits cities' ability to enact rent control in their jurisdictions. And it limits it in 3 ways. One, homes that are single family homes are exempt from having rent control. Homes that are new, built since 1995, so that's not new, but anyway, any homes that are built since 1995 are also exempt from rent control. And then there's also what's called vacancy decontrol. So anyone that moves out of an apartment building, that even if the building has rent control, if you move out, then that unit can revert back to market rate.
Yeah.
So since 1995, cities have been very limited in their ability to control rental prices. Now, Oakland and other, jurisdictions have pretty strong tenant protections, but they are very limited by Costa Hawkins. So last year, because of the housing crisis, before the pandemic, the governor and legislators, they actually did a housing emergency bill. Knowing that we are in a state of emergency, they are capping rent prices to 6% plus CPI or consumer price index, but no higher than 10%. So for the next 10 years, your rent can't be raised higher than 10%. But there are some that are exempt from that. I think single family homes, owners who own no more than 1 or 2 units are exempt from that. But now we are having, the pandemic, and people have been out of work, some since March, haven't been able to pay rent. There has been some reprieve. You get a reprieve, I think, until February.
But you still have to pay that rent.
You still have to pay that.
It's just a waiting.
Yes. And so Now we have this proposition again, trying to look at, okay, how can we work around Costa Hawkins? And so now Proposition 20 is asking the voters to allow cities,
21.
21, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Allow cities to enact rent control on all kinds of units,
Yes.
but except for buildings older than 15 years. So not 1995, let's say, was it 2005?
So wait, so if you built a building after 2005, you can do market rate, you can do whatever you want.
Yes. So, yeah. So, but
I mean,
all other buildings
in Oakland, when half the shit is being rebuilt, I mean, like, you can't even recognize, I don't recognize Broadway for all of the new buildings that ain't got nobody living in them.
Right. But they're saying, you know, at least allow, yeah. But anyway, if you have a building older than 2005, if Proposition 21 passes, then the city can enact rent control in those buildings. Now, but let's
wait, because I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that if you have a building that you built after 2005, now the city will be able to enact? No. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay. Got it. Make sure.
Building built older than 2005.
Got it.
Anything after 2005 is still under market rate.
Got it.
But let's be clear. Just because this proposition passes doesn't mean that all cities have this law. The city itself has to pass it themselves. So Santa Barbara, maybe there's just a bunch of wealthy people. Maybe it's not a lot of homeless people. Maybe, you know, they're just doing fine. They don't see a need to have rent control. They don't have to do it.
Yeah. But
other cities that have high rates of displacement, high rates of homelessness, really fearful of the ability of their residents being able to afford a place to live, they can now pass laws to enact rent control.
Okay.
That's all this bill does. It allows the cities the opportunity to do it if they need it.
Wow. So what are we doing about Costa Hawkins, sorry.
That's what this bill would kind of, you know, amend that. Costa Hawkins.
Mm-hmm. We should do another breakout and just talk about Costa Hawkins. Seriously, because it has such a huge impact on people's lives. And it's kind of like, you know, yesterday when we were talking about 15, and I was like, wait, hold the whole phone, like hold everything, because Prop 13 has affected my entire life.
It affects everything. I mean, Prop 13, a lot of people complain that Oakland has so many taxes. Like it has like the highest tax rate along a lot of neighborhood cities, right? And the reason why Oakland keeps giving new tax bills, almost every election season, they have a new tax thing. The reason why is because they can't recoup that money because of Prop 13. They have no other way of generating revenue. So they have to keep penny pinching on the budget. They have to keep asking, you know, local people to pay more in taxes because of Prop 13.
So after we get through these elections, me and you and Liz are going to have a conversation for the world to watch as we talk about what is required for us to activate and to organize so that we can truly create legislature that we can actually live by, you know, because I think that, again, we're just often so busy. People don't have the capacity to take the time to think about it. I'm calling the wrong proposition the wrong thing, and all this stuff, you know, and I just know that, my God, we have so much work to do, you know, like.
I mean, I can say in general, when you elect people, they like actually make being able to have the ability to make these laws, because when you do it through the legislature, you have almost a whole year to really work on that piece of legislation and make sure that, you know, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and all the people's concerns are weighed in. But when you have something going onto the ballot, it's a lot difficult, because in order to change a proposition that was on the ballot that was passed by the people, you have to go back to the people in order to change it. So so it's
Mm-hmm.
more costly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to take a lot more work in order to get that to change. So when you do a proposition, you can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
You have to do it right.
Right.
And
The first
what
time.
and I don't think people really, when Prop 13 passed, they didn't really do that. They didn't have the time to really think about how this would impact the state in the future. And as we can see, it's been a deep impact. We now are in a huge,
Horrible.
horrible,
Horrible impacts.
you
Like,
know. And so that's the thing. But on the other hand, sometimes our legislatures don't work in the way that we need them to. They didn't pass any really significant laws on police brutality.
yeah.
You know, so
And it
it's
just
interesting
goes,
dynamic.
and it goes back to, Liz and I were talking yesterday, and we were talking about how, you vote someone in, you pass a proposition, whatever. That's the dating process. That's not,
Yeah.
you're not, you know what I mean? You're not, or better yet, I guess they've been talking to you for a while. That's dating. Now you've agreed to be in some sort of relationship. You still got to communicate your needs. You have to consistently be present, and, that's not just your president. Our city council in Oakland is very accessible. They're very accessible. And we as a city have not put enough pressure on them to do what it is we want from them.
Yeah.
And so frequently we don't understand what's going on. And then people want to talk over your head and, so forth and so on. And we can't live that anymore.
Yeah, I've got so much to say about this. But I think, just to sum it up, you can't just vote during November.
No.
You have to stay engaged. You have to stay informed, because decisions are made in between election years.
All of the time.
And if you aren't paying attention, then stuff can happen underneath your nose. If you aren't at the table, then you're going to be the meal. I know the phrase, if you don't want to be, just, you have to be at the table.
You have to be present.
You have to be present. And a lot of times we aren't.
And I think part of what we're doing here is creating consistent people. Part of what I really wanted to do with Civics 101, and I know that Ryan wanted to do the same thing with Haven, is people like you and people like Liz who have got the mind to read through these things and so forth and understand some pieces. That's a talent, first of all. And it shouldn't have to be a talent at all. It should be really simple to be able to read through these things and completely understand it and all of that. But like, you've made this your life's work in your job. And so I think that in our communities, we don't have our own pundits, for lack of a better way of saying it. Our community pundits, people who we trust to go to those meetings and report back to us. And it's unfortunate that we got to go elect somebody who we thought that was their fucking job. Now do that. And now we need to have somebody in the community that we trust enough to go and show up. So thank you for always showing up for us, girl.
Thank you. And now, now that hopefully that I devote my time to it full time, I can, be able to make a living out of it. So yay.
We are going to figure out a way. We're going to make you a local pundit. We need to call Coffee TV 20 and KBOX and everybody else. I want to hear from you all the time about what's going on in our city.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to us connecting again on Friday. What are we talking about on Friday?
Bail reform.
Yeah. How can I forget? So sorry. Yes, we are talking about bail reform on Friday. So please, whoever you are, wherever you're at, don't miss that conversation. Don't miss tomorrow's conversation. Anything that you've missed already is both on my page, saved on my page, both as a post and in the stories. You can also go over to Haven. Please follow Haven, follow Haven, follow Haven. It is _1 Haven _ and consistently be checking in. There's always really great posts that they're making over there. You can follow me, go join the F.U.N Manifesto, which is my community of love and joy and light. And definitely follow Tonya Love, because Tonya keep it real and funky. I can't wait until like the Tuesday after the elections, where you're not like bound by not saying certain things. That's gonna be fun. I
It
want Brussels
is.
sprouts and wine. Girl, it's going down.
Tea time with Tonya. That's what
You can be pouring the tea for real, for real.
right.
All right, you guys. Well, we will see you again tomorrow. I'll be back in the mix with our sister Liz, and then on Friday again, and we will continue this conversation until we are victorious. And even still, we will keep on going.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.